Part 117. The Sweetness of the Seventies. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 1163. 1161. Zhu's Hitao's eyes were full of bloodshot, and he was somewhat silent when facing the staff's words. Originally, the staff wanted to mediate, but Yunhua's attorney took out a divorce agreement, which had already divided the property, as well as the custody of the child and the respective obligations. Seeing that the two parties had already coordinated, the staff took out two forms and asked Yunhua and Zhu's Hitao to fill them out. When he saw the reason for the divorce, Zhu's Hitao paused. Yunhua also paused, and the two looked at each other, and then Yunhua wrote 4 words on the paper: emotional incompatibility. There were too many right and wrong, and Yunhua didn't want to say anything, and thousands of words were gathered into these 4 words. Zhu's Hitao's nose was sour, and he lowered his head and wrote these 4 words on the paper: emotional incompatibility. There were wet spots on the forms of Zhu's Hitao and Yunhua, which were the tears left by the two. Seeing that the couple seemed to still have feelings for each other, the staff began to say, if you still have a foundation for love, we can coordinate for you and you can start over. Yunhua listened, shook his head gently, and said, no need, it's all in the past. Young man, what about you? The staff looked at Zhu's Hitao. Zhu's Hitao did not speak, but shook his head. Hey, seeing this, the staff had to continue the next process. An hour later, Yunhua and Zhu's Hitao held a green book in their hands, which was the divorce certificate. When they got outside the door, Yunhua stopped and said, Zhitao, this is the key to the house in Daihua community, you can take it. Zhu's Hitao looked at his ex-wife in front of him with a complicated expression, and his heart was full of mixed feelings, but he had refused before, and there was no need to accept it now, saying, no, this is all bought with your earning money. I didn't contribute to this family, and you have been wronged over the years. Even though he was still very sad, Zhu's Hitao still respected Yunhua in his heart. Divorced, they are not enemies. They are not because of infidelity, but because life has wiped out the edges of their love and their marriage. Our previous family was never established for money, and you should not think that I gave you this house or gave it to you as charity. Yunhua said, I just want you to live a good life. Although you are not my husband now, you are still Xiaoxiao's father after all. Xiaoxiao likes her father so much and admires her father, so I also hope that you can live a good life. You are very capable and you will have your own house in the future, but please accept Xiaoxiao's kindness. After all, these houses are Xiaoxiao's property. If you think this way, maybe you can accept it. Yunhua insisted that she had no shortage of money or houses, but she wanted to leave a good thought for her daughter and Zhu's Hitao, so that he could treat Xiaoxiao more sincerely. If you have time, you can come to see Xiaoxiao and play with your daughter. Seeing Yunhua say this, Zhu's Hitao reached out to take the key and said, then I won't be hypocritical. If you have something in the future, you can come to me at any time. Also, I want to see the child often on weekends. Sure, Yunhua said, Xiaoxiao also likes you to come to see her. In her heart, you are a very powerful father. Although we are divorced, we all hope that the child will have a happy childhood. Zhu's Hitao nodded, after I go back, I will let my parents leave, and I will move out as soon as possible. The courtyard where they lived before was Yunhua's property and Yunhua's favorite, so he would go back to deal with these things and not let Yunhua go there to embarrass him. Then, thank you very much, Yunhua said politely. The two got in the car and drove in different directions. Yunhua did not go home, but came directly to Hitianation's house. Although Zhu's Hitao went to the unit, he also arranged Hitianation's training and then went home. He wanted his parents to move out quickly. He had no face to live here, and his parents were not qualified to live here. After Tian returned home, she saw Yunhua sitting on the sofa in the living room with a lonely face. He Tian knew that Yuan Hua would come to see her, so she was not surprised, but she didn't expect it to be so soon. Yuan Hua, what's wrong? He Tian asked, and poured Yuan Hua a cup of warm water. Yuan Hua took it, drank a few sips, and then slowly said, Teacher I'm divorced. Ah, He Tian was stunned, divorced. Yes, divorced, Yuan Hua said. You also know about my family's previous affairs. Half of my marriage with Zhu's Hitao was emotional, and the other half was because I needed to get married, so I got married. But after getting married, I found that marriage is not as beautiful as I imagined. I envy marriages like yours and Huo Yingjia, but there are very few, at least I haven't encountered them. He Tian listened and said softly, everyone's marriage is not same. You are an adult and my good friend, I respect your decision. Since you are divorced, have you thought about the future? Yunhua smiled and said, I haven't thought about it. I just want to divorce and escape from that cage. Now I finally understand the classic words written by Mr. Qian Zongshu in Fortress Besieged. For marriage, people outside want to get in, and people inside want to get out. He Tian listened, patted Yunhua on the shoulder and said, you are a very noble literary young woman, disdainful of those family disputes. You have tolerated it before and didn't care, why don't you tolerate it this time? They abused Xiao Yuanhua was angry, I can't let my children live in such an atmosphere since childhood. Afterwards, Yuanhua told He Tian how his father-in-law and mother-in-law dealt with small things. After hearing this, He Tian glared angrily and said, you know that your father-in-law and mother-in-law favor boys over girls, why didn't you find out earlier? Why did Xiao become so quiet? It turns out that he was tortured. In this case, divorce is not an option. It's much better than having children living in that environment. Yes, Yuan Hua said, so I cut the knot quickly and got divorced. My father used to persuade me, but he didn't persuade me this time. Although he thinks it's not good for women to divorce, he doesn't want me to have a divorce with Xiao. It's a frustrating life. He Tian nodded and said, how was the property divided? Have you obtained the custody of the child? My little guardianship is with me. Zhu's Hitao wants a car. As for the house, I insist on giving it to him, but he doesn't want it, Yuan Hua said. Zhu's Hitao is not a bad person, but whatever happens to him his parents would give in unprincipledly. Our divorce was smooth, with no fighting or verbal attacks. At the same time, he is a young father, and I can't let him have a place to stay. The marriage certificate used to be a small green notebook, now it is red. The Sweetness of the Seventies. Author, Chi Xing Cao. Chapter 1164. 1162. Listening carefully to Yuan Hua's narration, He Tian is now a qualified listener. Yuan Hua is an independent individual, and He Tian respects the decisions she makes. After all, this is Yuan Hua's life, and it can only be decided by herself. He Tian nodded and said, okay, since you have already made the separation, I won't say more. If someone bullies you, you still have to tell me. Well, I'm not here to talk to you now, Yuan Hua smiled. Father, I can't even talk to my children, and I can't cry in front of them. Teacher you are a woman, and you are also my good friend, so you got me. Haha, after all, we have been together for several years and understand each other, He Tian said. Since we are divorced, we should live well and make our lives colorful. Life is only a few decades, so be happy it is a day, and it is also a day to be unhappy. Our time is decreasing little by little, so I hope you can cherish every day in the future. Yuan Hua nodded and said, thank you, teacher I will cherish every day in the future. The world is a wonderful place. When the children are older, I will take them out to sea and broaden their horizons. Yes, there are really many wonderful things out there. The beauty of life is to constantly try new wonderful things. He Tian said, I can feel relieved when I see you like this. Zuz Hitao, what should I do? What about your attitude towards it? He Tian is so willful, helping her relatives but not taking care of her. If Yuan Hua had a problem with Zuz Hitao, He Tian would not give Zuz Hitao a good look. Haha, it's a private matter between Zuz Hitao and I. We broke up amicably, Yuan Hua said. You can still act like before. After all, he is indeed a capable coach and a little dad. I also hope that I can live a good life in the future. Okay, He Tian shrugged, then I'll treat it as normal. Yes, you should continue to maintain this relationship, Yuan Hua said. In fact, when she heard He Tian's words, she was moved because she felt that in a big city like Yanjing, there was no teacher she could rely on. This dependence is not only material, but also spiritual. Yuan Hua found spiritual comfort in He Tian and went home full of energy. Even though He Tian persuaded her to stay for dinner, she didn't stay. As Yuan Hua drove, she told herself in her heart that starting from today, it was a new journey, and she had to make the rest of the journey well. By the way, after Zuz Hitao returned from work, he saw that his mother had just returned from the vegetable market and bought a lot of chicken, fish, meat, and eggs. Just as Zuz Hitao was about to speak, Mother Zhu scolded her, "Hurry up and ask your wife to pay for the food. And that woman named Wu is too lazy, so I fired her and asked your wife to find another nanny. This whole time, God, I did it inside and out, I'm exhausted." Zuz Hitao was speechless and asked with squinted eyes, "There are only 3 people at home now. Can you finish all the food you bought so much?" "Of course there are more than just the 3 of us. Your brother's family is coming over in the evening," Mother Zhu said. "Oh, my little sweet grandson likes to eat pig's trotters the most. I bought 4 braised pig's trotters. I will definitely enjoy it." In this family, when good things happen, no one thinks of Yuan Hua or Xiao Xiao. On the contrary, when they spend money, they think of Yuan Hua. He had vaguely known about it before, but he thought they were a family, so he tolerated it. This divorce made him realize how ridiculous his family was. His indifference was even more absurd, tearing apart his happy little family. Zuz Hitao was not in the mood to quarrel with his mother. He felt very sad and feared that he would lose his temper and return to the study. At 5:30 in the afternoon, Zuz Hitao heard a noise outside and the shouts of children. Zhu's father and Zhu's mother were very happy to see their youngest son's family coming, and called their eldest grandson into the house. "Dad, Mom, eldest brother, sister-in-law haven't gotten off work yet," Zhu's Hiban asked. "Where's Xiao Xiao?" "I bought her toffee." "That's mine, and I won't give it to Xiao Xiao," Zhu Xiaoqiang said arrogantly. "Grandma said that all the delicious food is mine, and I won't give it to Xiao Xiao." Zhu's Hiban looked a little embarrassed and said, "Mom, no matter what, Xiao Xiao is the eldest brother's only child, you can't say that about Xiao Xiao. The eldest brother may not be angry with you, but the sister-in-law will definitely be angry in her heart. Okay, tell me as soon as you come here that you don't want to eat delicious food," Mother Zhu said, not worrying about this one. Zhu's Hiban's wife Mei Xiaolian smiled, took the fruit plate from her mother-in-law's hand, and said, "My mother-in-law is the oldest in our family, and she will feed it to whomever she says." These words flattered Zhu's mother, which made Zhu's mother very happy. She felt that the second daughter-in-law was pleasing to the eye and not as noble as the eldest daughter-in-law. "Xiaolian is filial. I made the braised bream that you like to eat today. You can eat more than." Mother Zhu smiled and went to the kitchen. "Thank you, Mom, I'll help you." Mei Xiaolian smiled and followed Zhu's mother to the kitchen. "I was busy working outside and finally prepared the meal." Father Zhu went to call Zuz Hitao. Zuz Hitao just came out of the room, feeling very sad. "When my parents came here, they had a nanny at home and never let them cook, but their parents still didn't like Yuan Hua. Hey, I really don't know why. Brother, are you at home? Zuzhiban asked in surprise. By the way, it's already past 6 o'clock. Why hasn't my sister-in-law come back yet? Zuzhitao was thinking about how to tell his family that he and Yuanhua were divorced, but he was still thinking about the words when he heard his mother say, "Your sister-in-law said that I was not good to Xiao Xiao, so she just took the child with her. Ran away from home." Zuzhitao was stunned. How could he say that to Yuanhua in front of his younger brother? Ah, Zuzhiban was stunned. No way. My sister-in-law has a very good temper. Oh, why are you screwing me? While Zuzhiban was talking, Mei Xiaolian pinched his thigh. Seeing that everyone else was looking at her, Mei Xiaolian smiled and said, "Mom, don't be angry. My sister-in-law is highly educated and capable, so she will inevitably be angry. You have a lot of wisdom, don't take it personally. I don't know, but since you came to live at my eldest brother's house, our Xiaoqiang has been missing his grandma and wanting to be with her." Zhu's mother was very jealous of her grandson. She heard her daughter-in-law say, "Well, your eldest brother and sister-in-law live in the backyard, so you can move in with us in the same yard, so that I can see Xiaoqiang every day, and there is a primary school nearby. It's better than Xiaoqiang's previous elementary school." "Mom, is it true?" Mei Xiaolian said. "I also heard that the schools here are good, and I heard that rich people live here. I didn't expect that we could live there." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Sweetness of the 70s. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 1165. 1163. Although Zuzhiban also wanted to stay, but seeing that his eldest brother had been silent and his expression was a little unnatural, he quickly said, "It's better not to, after all, this is my sister-in-law's home. Your sister-in-law's is also your eldest brother's, and your eldest brother was born in my 10th month of pregnancy. Naturally, you have to obey me." Mother Zhu said proudly. She was the one who had the final say in this family. Hearing his mother's words, Zuzhitao felt disgusted, let alone other people, and sneered softly, "Ha ha, you have nothing to say this time. No one can live here, and Xiaoqiang can't come to go to the school here." "Shut up, Zhiban is your brother, and Xiaoqiang is your nephew. You are just a daughter. From now on, you have to rely on Xiaoqiang for everything." Mother Zhu said, "You can do it if you can, or you can do it if you don't." "Okay. Brother, we are here to live and won't disturb you. After all, this yard is so big. You live in the backyard and we live in the front yard. Besides, if Xiaoqiang becomes successful in the future, he will also respect you as an uncle." Mei Xiaolian said. Previously, her mother-in-law did not agree because her family's conditions were not good, but when she became pregnant, she had no choice but to get married. Fortunately, she was able to live up to her expectations and actually gave birth to a son. Her mother-in-law gradually began to look good. In addition, she liked to say clever things. As time went by, her mother-in-law became more and more fond of her as her daughter-in-law. She would leave a share of all good things for her. Now my sister-in-law has no face in front of her. Mei Xiaolian is arrogant without knowing it, and is feeling triumphant. Zuzhitao sneered, looked at Mei Xiaolian in front of him, and then at his mother who looked indifferent, and said slowly, "After finishing this meal here today, everyone will move out early tomorrow morning." Zhu's father and Zhu's mother were stunned and said, "Did your wife ask you to drive us away? That heartless one is not filial at all. I'm going to go to her unit and ask their leaders whether they care about such employees." Zuzhitao sneered and said, "Yuanhua, your eldest daughter-in-law, whom you despise, is no longer your daughter-in-law. She has divorced me. This yard belongs to Yuanhua, you have the shame to rely on others." After speaking, Zhu's Hitao took out a green notebook from his coat pocket and threw it on the table. What? Zhu's father was anxious. Divorce. How could there be a divorce? Zhu's mother's face turned red from suppressing the pain. She tremblingly picked up the green notebook on the table, opened it and saw that it was indeed the divorce certificate. Why did you agree to divorce? Zhu's mother asked hurriedly. Although she didn't like Yuanhua or Xiao Xiao, she quite liked that Yuanhua could make money and support the family. The standard of living is better. In recent years, because of Yuanhua, even the life of the youngest son's family has become better. Zhu's husband was also a little anxious. Although he liked to take advantage of small things, he didn't want his eldest brother to be separated from his wife. He said, "Brother, go and coax my sister-in-law. Xiaoqiang is studying in the original school. He is not allowed to come over, so as not to let him go. Sister-in-law is angry." Mei Xiaolian curled her lips and said, "We are still a family. It would be too stingy for the elder sister-in-law to see outsiders like this. Besides, Xiao Xiao is a girl. If we, Xiaoqiang, come over, we can still protect Xiao Xiao in the future. The two children also we can grow up together." Zhu's Hitao did not speak, but turned around and went to the study, took out a few videotapes, played them on the video recorder, and then said slowly, "Look at how your son bullied my daughter." In the scene inside, Zhu Xiaoqiang threw things on the ground, and Xiao Xiao could only pick up food on the ground. Seeing such a scene, Zhu's husband was also angry. He knew his son was spoiled, but he didn't expect it to be like this. He reached out and spanked Zhu Xiaoqiang a few times on the butt. "Let your kid do bad things, let your kid do bad things." Zhu's husband hit the child hard, while Mei Xiaolian next to him kept trying to stop him, and even Zhu's mother couldn't sit still. "The child is young and will be sensible when he grows up," Zhu's mother persuaded her and quickly went to start a fight. Mei Xiaolian was reluctant to fight her son. After all, her son was the main contributor to her establishing a foothold in the Zhu family. Zhu's husband was furious and said sternly, "If you pamper him now, he will grow crooked in the future. Being unfilial is still a trivial matter, and he will probably become a labor camp prisoner and go to jail in the future. Brother, it's all my fault. I now know that my son is crooked. I will discipline you strictly in the future." After Zhu's husband finished speaking, he stopped eating and left with Zhu Xiaoqiang, who was crying. "Have a good meal. Why are you beating your child? He's just a kid. What does he know?" Mei Xiaolian stopped her and didn't want to leave. She hadn't eaten a table full of delicious food yet. Father Zhu frowned but did not speak. He also felt that his grandson needed discipline. "Brother, I'm sorry. I didn't discipline the child well. In the future, I will educate the child well and bring the child over to apologize to you." And Xiao Xiao Zhu's husband hugged Zhu Xiaoqiang and was about to leave. Mei Xiaolian was not happy and said, "If you want to leave, go and leave Xiaoqiang here." Zhu's husband was furious and cursed, "If you don't leave, fine, I will divorce you tomorrow too." After saying that, Zhu's husband hugged the child and left. The eldest brother had already divorced his sister-in-law, and he had no shame in staying here. When Mei Xiaolian saw her husband say this, she felt a little soft. She knew that although her husband was usually easy to talk to, he was particularly difficult to talk to when he was angry. "Hey, let's finish eating before leaving." Mei Xiaolian didn't expect to move here, but she also wanted to finish eating before leaving. Otherwise, she would have to cook when she got home and she would be hungry. "Eat, you know how to eat, go back to your parents' house and eat," Zhu's husband said angrily, his voice getting softer and quieter. When Mei Xiaolian saw this, she quickly chased him out. Only Zhu's father was left at home, and Zhu's mother looked at each other. Zhu's Hitao remained silent, picked up the chopsticks, picked up the meat and vegetables, ate and drank heavily. "Hitao, how about I talk to your father-in-law tomorrow and let's make amends and apologize," Zhu's father whispered. He could feel his son's depression. Deep down, he didn't want his son to get divorced. These days, there are not many people who get married for the second time, but they don't want to live a good life. Although he hopes that the boss will win over his younger son, he also doesn't want his eldest son to be separated from his wife. Zhu's Hitao took a sip of wine, burped, and sneered, "It's useless to say it now. Yuan Hua has been heartbroken by you and no longer wants to be with me. My father-in-law also followed suit before, but this time my father-in-law didn't say a word, which proves that he is also disappointed with us. Are you happy now that I'm divorced?" Father Zhu was speechless, feeling something was wrong, and looked at Mother Zhu. Mother Zhu was always strong-willed. She held her neck tightly and refused to admit her mistake. After a while, she slowly said, "If we divorce, we will divorce. How will the property be divided? I recommend Kikai's own new book Rebirth of the Sweet Wife, The Strongest Agent. Recommendation votes are needed. Collection, OK. The Sweetness of the Seventies. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 1166. 1164. Zhu's Hitao was really disappointed. This is the family he has been protecting, and he has lost his little home. Ha 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 ha, Zhu's Hitao felt very ridiculous when he heard his mother's words. In his mother's eyes, his family, his happiness, and his children were not important. Only money was important in her mother's eyes. Say less when Zhu's father saw his son like this, he was afraid that his son was really crazy, so he quickly stopped his wife. Anyway, we are divorced, so of course we have to fight for the best interests, Mother Zhu said. Xiao Xiao has the joint property of your husband and wife in Xiao Xiao's name. No matter what, you have to ask for custody of Xiao Xiao. As long as Xiao Xiao is brought over, Xiao Xiao is still a young girl, and the property is not the final say of their elders. Zhu's Hitao sneered and said, "The children follow me and have elders like you, so they will not have a good life. They are my biological children, so I naturally hope that Xiao Xiao will live well. It's my fault. I don't have the ability to protect them. As long as you have a car, this house belongs to Yuan Hua and you are no longer qualified to live in it. Just pack up and move out tomorrow." "What?" Mother Zhu was stunned. "You don't want anything, but a car?" "I don't have the nerve to ask for it," Zhu's Hitao sneered. "Only a greedy person like you would keep staring at your daughter-in-law's things. Now she is no longer your daughter-in-law, let's see how you can't do it." After saying that, Zhu's Hitao went in, packed some clothes, put them into a big bag, and moved them out early tomorrow morning. When Zhu's mother saw her son like this, she was very angry and cursed, "It's useless. It's so worthless to have such a big business and not fight for it." Zhu's father regretted and said, "Hey, we did go too far in the past, but we didn't expect that Yuan Hua had such a strong temper and divorced him directly. How can a divorced piece of trash end up well? I want to see what kind of good man she can find," Mother Zhu said. "Let's not be impatient. When that woman can't find a good man, maybe she will die remarried to son." Zhu Mu's idea could not be changed for a while, and she felt that this was temporary. Father Zhu didn't think so. He felt that Yuan Hua might be serious this time. Maybe. Father Zhu hesitated. "If there is no possibility, we don't have to move," Mother Zhu said. "They don't eat, but we eat. Only when we are full and drink enough can we be in good spirits." Father Zhu had no choice but to sit down and eat, thinking that if he had time, he would talk to his in-laws about it. Things about the woman's family were just like that. There was no need to worry about it. It would be better to have a complete family. Deep down in her heart, Zhu's mother was also a little panicked. If such a daughter-in-law disappeared, her son had such a dull temper and did not ask for property, she would suffer a big loss. Her son is very good, but she has to admit that Yuan Hua is also very talented and good at making money. If he searches again, his son will definitely find someone as good as Yuanhua. I couldn't sleep well all night. Zhu's Hitao got up in the morning, put several large bags into the car, and said, "You guys pack your things quickly. I will send the gifts to the dormitory of the unit, and I will come over to pull your things. This is my home, why should I leave?" Mother Zhu said, "If you want to leave, you can leave." Zhu's Hitao frowned. He promised Yuanhua to get his parents out of here as soon as possible. "If you don't leave, someone will drive you away anyway," Zhu's Hitao said. "This is Yuanhua's house. She is my ex-wife, not your daughter-in-law." "No, I won't move," Zhu's mother said. She didn't want to go back to live in an apartment building in such a big place. At this moment, Aunt Wu came in from outside with a few middle-aged men. When she saw Zhu's Hitao, she said, "Zhitao, Yuanhua asked me to bring a few people to watch them move." Zhu's Hitao nodded and said, "Then I'll trouble you. Since you don't listen to what I say, then let others pack your things for you." Zhu's Hitao turned around and drove away. As for the parents, since they have no shame, let them be embarrassed. Zhu's father and Zhu's mother looked at each other. Aunt Wu directly took people to Zhu's father's and Zhu's mother's rooms, and said, "You should pack your things quickly. You can't live here anymore. Yuanhua is no longer your daughter-in-law. You can't use this status to deal with her now. Come on, if you don't do it yourself, we'll do it for you." Mother Zhu looked ugly, turned pale, and clenched her fists tightly. How could she do this? How could she do this? Mother Zhu murmured to herself, wondering why Yuanhua, who was like a little sheep, suddenly became tough. Aunt Wu heard what Zhu's mother said and said, "That means Yuanhua has a good temper and tolerates your prudery. Now I don't want to tolerate it anymore. Anyway, you have always looked down on me. Now you can leave quickly." Zhu's mother wanted to say more, but was stopped by Zhu's father, saying, "Don't be embarrassed, pack your things quickly." When I was packing my things, Aunt Wu was beside me. Zhu's mother thought that since she had to leave today, she should take something good and leave, but Aunt Wu kept watching. While Mother Zhu was loading the vase on the cabinet, Aunt Wu sneered and said, "Hey, I'm trying to get something belonging to my ex-daughter-in-law. Put it on, anyway, we have to search it again before you leave the house. You can't take away anything you shouldn't. This is something in my room, of course you can take it," Mother Zhu said arrogantly, unwilling to let go of the benefits in her hands. Aunt Wu smiled and said, "Ha ha, then the road you have walked is also the road of your home, so you have to move away? What a joke. Yuanhua didn't care about you before, but I didn't expect that you would do it every time you go back. Take back the good things from home. You think we don't know? We all know. I have a list here. Do you want to return those things?" Anyway, Aunt Wu is not afraid of Mother Zhu even though she is at odds with her. Coupled with the anger I received from Zhu Mu before, I can finally get rid of it all at once. This old woman is really too much. Seeing this, Father Zhu quickly said, "Don't take it, just take our clothes away. They are not ours anyway." Things had gone beyond his expectation and beyond his control. If they make a big fuss, they will still be the ones to lose face. It's better to pack things up quickly, otherwise it will be those people's turn to take action and throw things out directly to them. Although Zhu Mu was angry, there was nothing she could do. The two of them, who are elderly, can't deal with those strong men, not to mention that the younger son is not here and the elder son doesn't care, so they can't help. After dilly-dallying for an hour, Zhu's mother finally packed her things and looked around reluctantly. "Hey, such a nice house and yard, I can't continue to live here in the future." The reason why I wrote about Yuanhua's marriage was to show the different processes and results of several marriages in the novel. Qi Xiaoyan, Niu Dajan's mutual encouragement, golden pair, Wu Yaoliang's right choice, Qi Zhenmin, Tang Qian's fate, He Tian Tian, Huo Yingjia's various hardships. This chapter is finished and I won't write it again. The Sweetness of the Seventies. Author, Qi Xing Cao. Chapter 1167. 1165. Although Aunt Wu wanted to check, she still saved some face for them. She put their things and the two of them in the car and sent them back to the dormitory building where they originally lived. Aunt Wu was at home, arranging for people to clean inside and outside, waiting for Yuanhua, the old man, and Xiao Xiao to come home. Zhu's Hitao moved to the work dormitory. Everyone was surprised and wondered what was going on. Kui Ying also knew about it, and came to He Tian and asked in a low voice, Tian, why did Zhu's Hitao move out of the house? Is there something wrong with his marriage to Yuanhua? It's not just an accident, but a divorce, He Tian replied, not surprised, because she already knew the reason. Ah, Kui Ying was surprised. Divorced? Why did you get divorced? Why didn't you persuade me? Why do you want to persuade? He Tian asked. This is Yuanhua's own decision. She is an adult and feels that marriage brings her less happiness than pain. So what about divorce? But what about the child? Kui Ying said, the child doesn't have a complete family. Not having a complete family does not mean that parents do not love their children. Especially like now, Yuanhua and Zhu's Hitao have broken up peacefully, and the children have become the only ties. As long as two people treat their children well, it is better than living there. A life of quarrels is much better, He Tian explained. Yuanhua is more emotional than ordinary women, and values love very much, but she cannot change and accept the friction in life caused by her parents-in-law, and the family treats Xiao Xiao. Yuanhua's attitude was even more unacceptable, so she divorced. Kui Ying was stunned, thought for a moment, nodded and said, when you are in love, love is everything. After getting married, there are still a lot of rights and wrongs. Yes, He Tian nodded, so I didn't persuade you, there is no need to persuade. Haha, I was wrong, Kui Ying said. Anyway, Yuanhua still has good sisters like you, so she is still very happy. Don't worry, Yuanhua has passed the age of love. He Tian smiled and said, women, you have to live freely. As for those worldly constraints, there is no need to care too much. You're right, Kui Ying praised. By the way, if Huo Yingjia changes his mind, what will you do? He Tian was stunned for a moment, then smiled bitterly and said, I will be sad, but if my heart is no longer with me, I will not miss you and live a good life with my children. If I meet someone good, I can start a relationship again. Haha, you can think so, Kui Ying said with a smile. I'm afraid Huo Yingjia will never leave you, let alone his whole life. Haha, that's good, He Tian smiled. No need to change people, save time, and enjoy life. Zhu's Hitao has taken leave for the past 2 days. He needed peace and quiet now, alone. He didn't want to shut himself in the room and be decadent, but walked around and took a look. After walking for a day, he realized that the places he passed today were all places he had walked with Yuanhua. Zhu's Hitao stood on the top of the mountain, covering his face, and finally couldn't help crying. Tears are a testimony of regret. At the same time, it is also proof of incompetence. He lost Yuanhua. From the moment Yuanhua filed for divorce. After that, Zhu's Hitao stopped thinking so much and devoted himself to training. Since Zhu's Hitao and Yuanhua broke up peacefully, although He Tian was a little dissatisfied with Zhu's Hitao, it was a matter between the two of them after all, so she wouldn't say more. Now He Tian and Zhu's Hitao's relationship is just that of coach and player. Zhu's Hitao also has another identity, that is, he is a little dad. Half a month later, Zhu's Hitao finally found a chance to talk to He Tian. I'm sorry, I failed to live up to your previous blessing. Zhu's Hitao bowed to He Tian. He Tian was the elder of the woman who gave him and Yuanhua the blessing. He Tian sighed and said, actually, it is your marriage. The good and bad words of others are not important. The key is how you manage it yourself. You have reached this point, and it is not as cold as a day. You and Yuan who are the conflicts and quarrels between you have affected your relationship. Although you are divorced now, I believe you are an upright person. You are still a little dad and we are still friends. If you have not been a good husband, then you must be a good father. If you can't do this, there is no cure. Zhu's Hitao felt melancholy after hearing this, nodded and said, I will try to be a good father. Well, I heard from Yuan Hua that you take Xiao Xiao to play with you on weekends. He Tian said, although you are divorced, the child is still yours. You are right to do this. I did something wrong before, but now it's too late to regret it. Zhu's Hitao said, try to make up for it as much as possible. The responsibility for the end of this marriage lies with me. I have been accommodating my parents' unreasonable troubles. Yuan Hua is a good woman, but she still insists. I was given an apartment, but I didn't want to live in it. Instead, I rented it out and now live in the dormitory of the work unit. He Tian was a little confused and asked, why do you have to live in a dormitory instead of a house? Is it for financial reasons? Zhu's Hitao shook his head and said, if I lived in that big house alone, my parents said they would definitely live in it. Not only would they live in it, they would probably let my brother's family live in it as well. Then it wouldn't be my house, plus my sister is coming back from abroad soon. It is said that she is divorced and has no house to live in. She will live in my room, so I have to think more about it and not be like before. Let's get by. If Zhu's Hitao had had such an awareness before, he and Yuan Hua would not have been able to get divorced. Seeing He Tian's expression, Zhu's Hitao smiled bitterly and said, I woke up too late. Yes, He Tian nodded, sometimes giving in is not the solution. You should use your discretion. Okay, you have to be good in the future, little daddy. I will, Zhu's Hitao said. The house was in a good location and could earn 500 yuan a month, which was higher than his salary. From now on, he will also have to manage his salary well and make some investments. My parents have pensions and do not need him to provide living expenses. The money ended up in the hands of his brother's family, and he couldn't be so stupid in the future. After talking to Zhu's Hitao, He Tian regained familiarity with Zhu's Hitao and trained harder. Zhu's Hitao also continued to provide He Tian with enough scientific training methods. He Tian made a lot of progress, and his current results are better than the best results in the world. He Tian is not proud, she works harder. This is probably her last game, so she wants to retire with the best results. At the same time, she also hopes that her busy life will enrich her life and stop thinking about Huo Yingjia all day long. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Sweetness of the 70s. Author, Chi Xing Cao. Chapter 1168. 1166. Although Zhu's Hitao's parents had several quarrels after that, they were all stopped by Zhu's Hitao. Zhu's father and mother could not see Zhu's Hitao, so they had to come to the unit to look for Zhu's Hitao, followed by Zhu's Hitao's sister. He Tian passed by them, glanced at them, and left with Kui Ying without saying hello. When He Tian walked away, Mother Zhu became indignant and said, "What the hell? Just pretend not to see us." Father Zhu sighed, "That's not pretending, it's that he really doesn't want to pay attention to us. My son is still her coach, why doesn't he respect us?" Zhu's mother said, "Let's find Zidao and tell our son that he should teach his team members a lesson." There were some athletes coming and going, and they kept staring at them. The guard quickly informed Zhu's Hitao and asked him to come out. He could not let these two people in at will. When Zhu's Hitao saw his parents coming, he said expressionlessly, "There is a tea house over there. We can go there. If anything happens, we can talk about it over there. Zhu's father and Zhu's mother saw that their son's expression was not good, so they had to follow him. When he arrived at the tea house, Zhu's Hitao ordered a pot of tea, poured a cup for each of his parents, and said, "What do you want?" "Hitao, why are you talking to your parents like this?" Zhu's Hyman frowned. "My parents told me before that you were not good to them, and it was true." Zhu's Hitao looked at his eldest sister and sneered, "If I had been tougher on my parents before, I wouldn't have gotten divorced now. Now that I'm divorced, what else do you want? Do you want to take away my job and achieve nothing? Are you satisfied?" When Zhu's Hyman saw what his brother said, he was unhappy and said, "Our parents don't want you to get divorced. We came here this time just to get you to remarry Yuanhua. Husband and wife quarrel when they quarrel, so why divorce?" "Haha," Zhu's Hitao couldn't laugh or cry. "Who do you think your brother is? How capable do you think your brother is? I don't think I have that much charm. If you did, you wouldn't be divorced and come back with your children." Zhu's Hitao's words made Zhu's Hyman turn red and said, "We are not emotionally compatible, so there is no need to be together. You and I are different and cannot be compared." "Haha, what's the difference?" Zhu's Hitao asked back. "You were scolding your ex-brother-in-law's family on the phone before. I also have a top family here, so naturally I can't keep you and Hua." Father Zhu was stunned and said with a stern face, "How could you say that? Of course we hope you live well. We didn't know things would develop like this." "You don't know," Zhu's Hitao sneered. "Then what are those things you did before? Even I don't forgive you, let alone Yuanhua. I don't know why you came to me, but I can say, please don't interfere with my affairs. Again, don't bother He Tian Tian. Although I am He Tian Nation's coach, there are many people in the swimming team who want to be He Tian Nation's coach. You are chasing me, but I am chasing He Tian Tian. If you want to ruin my career, I have already separated my wife and children. If my career fails, just buy a bottle of pesticide and drink it. Then you can continue to make trouble." After saying that, Zhu's Hitao put down 20 yuan under the teacup, paid it, stood up and left. Zhu's Hitao resented himself, but he also resented his parents. Now that he has lost his family, he does not want to lose his job or career because of his parents' unreasonable behavior. Zhu's Hitao left, leaving his parents, Zhu's Hyman, looking at each other. Look, it's become like this now." Zhu's mother was so angry that she burst into tears at Zhu's Hyman. "Hitao is not obedient at all now." Father Zhu frowned and sighed, "Let's stop fussing. Hitao really hates us. Now that he's divorced, if there are problems at work again, he probably won't be able to bear it. Hey, there's 1,000 words to tell. Or we went too far." After hearing this, Zhu's Hyman nodded and said, "Now that the eldest brother is not letting us talk about the property, he probably doesn't want to sue for the division of property. Then we don't have to be such evil people." That's a lot of money." Zhu's mother hesitated, a little reluctant to part with it. "Don't give up more. If you can get half of it, your family's life will be more comfortable." Zhu's father said in a deep voice, "If Hitao doesn't divorce, it will all belong to our Zhu family. Now that we are divorced, it has nothing to do with our family." Hitao obviously doesn't want to mention it again. "No matter how anxious we are, there is nothing we can do. If you are in a hurry and affects Hitao's work, you will lose both your wife and your troops." Zhu's Hyman nodded and said, "I have also heard about He Tian Tian abroad. He is the favorite for this year's Olympic Games. What my eldest brother said is that there are so many people who want to coach He Tian Tian. Whoever becomes He Tian Nation's coach will be the best choice. What a great resume it is to break the record of 0 domestic swimming gold medals. If we offend He Tian Tian or make trouble for Yuanhua, He Tian Tian will definitely not sit idly by because of his kindness to Yuanhua. When Zhu's mother heard this, she didn't dare to go to Zhu's Hitao's unit, let alone go to He Tian Tian. Hey, let's go home then, Mother Zhu said. Now that this is the case, she also understands that if she continues to make trouble, it will only make things worse. At this time, Zhu Mu was immersed in regret. However, Zhu's mother didn't give up. She couldn't come to her son's work or find He Tian Tian, but she could go to Yuanhua and Xiao Xiao. His father, you went to find your in-laws. What did your in-laws say? Zhu's mother asked. If possible, let's go and ask for help from our in-laws. The in-law here is naturally Yuanhua's father. Father Zhu shook his head and said, the in-laws have said that everything depends on the child. If the child wants to remarry, he can remarry. If he doesn't want to remarry, he has nothing to do and will not interfere. Then I'll go and beg Yuanhua, Mother Zhu said. If you don't believe that, I'll kneel down to her. Yuanhua won't agree. I was wrong before, I'll admit it. It's okay if they just admit their mistakes, and they won't get divorced, Zhu's hymen persuaded her. She didn't want her mother to humiliate herself. She had also persuaded her mother before, especially when her parents moved to Yuanhua's yard, so she said, but if the parents don't listen, there is nothing they can do. Zhu Mu couldn't help but sigh after hearing this. Zhu's mother secretly went to Xiaoxiu's busy primary school while others didn't know. Because Yuanhua usually works, but when Xiao Xiao is out of school, Yuanhua will pick up the children. On this day, Xiao Xiao got out of school early and was waiting for her mother across the school fence. Zhu's mother came over with a smile on her face and shouted softly, Xiao Xiao, Grandma is here to pick you up from school. Xiao Xiao was stunned and quickly took a few steps back. She remembered the scene where her grandma beat her before. She was a little scared and didn't want to get close to her grandma. The Sweetness of the 70s. Author, Chi Xing Cao. Chapter 1169. 1167. When the teacher on the side saw this scene, he quickly came over, fearing that he was a human trafficker. Xiao Xiao, who is this? Do you know her? The teacher asked, guarding Zhu's mother like a thief. Zhu Xiao Xiao nodded, but shook his head. I am a little grandmother, here to pick up the child from school, Zhu's mother said. After picking up the child, she went to find Yuanhua, which might make it easier to talk. Hearing this, the teacher was a little disbelieving and said, it's impossible. How can any child see his grandmother hiding behind? Xiao Xiao, don't be afraid. Tell the teacher, do you know her? Zhu Xiao Xiao was worried that the teacher would hand her over to her grandma, so she kept hiding behind the teacher. When the teacher saw this, he would not hand the child over. Whether it is or not, let's wait for Zhu Xiaoxiu's parents to come over, the teacher said, pulling Zhu Xiao Xiao to prevent her from running around, lest she be taken away. After a while, most of the children were picked up by their families. Yuanhua rushed past and saw Zhu's mother. Zhu's mother also looked a little embarrassed when she saw Yuanhua. On the contrary, Yuanhua picked up the child, then looked at Zhu's mother who was following him, and said with a normal expression, we are going home, goodbye. Seeing this, Zhu's mother quickly said, Yuanhua, it was my fault before, I shouldn't have treated you and Xiao Xiao like that. Now that I have apologized to you, then you can remarry Zhitao. After hearing this, Yuanhua shook his head and laughed, saying, a broken mirror cannot be put back together, nor can it be put back when it is covered with water. Take care of yourself. Goodbye. After Yuanhua finished speaking, he was about to leave. Mother Zhu grabbed Yuanhua's arm and said, Yuanhua, I know I was wrong, why are you still reluctant to let me go? Can you bear to leave Xiao Xiao without a father? Yuanhua put the child in the car and said softly, Xiao Xiao, be good in the car. Mommy will be here soon. Zhu Xiao Xiao hid in the car, but kept looking outside, worried that her grandmother would hit her mother. Grandma is so scary, Grandma Wolf. After settling the child, Yuan Hua turned around and said calmly, Ms. Zhu's Hitao and I divorced peacefully. As for why we divorced, maybe you know better than anyone else. Xiao Xiao is Zhu's Hitao's child, and Zhu's Hitao will always be Xiaoxiao's father. This cannot be changed now that we have met today, let me make it clear. Seeing Yuan Hua like this, Zhu's mother looked embarrassed and had a bad feeling in her heart. She said sarcastically, we are all a family, how can we have an overnight feud? Before, I never understood why no matter how well I did, I was worthless in your eyes. Later, I understood that you were just afraid that I would be too good and put pressure on you. But at that time, I made it clear Chu, you are my family. It would be better if we all live in harmony. But you never believe it and keep creating conflicts between me and Zhu's Hitao. Zhu's Hitao is a good son who can ignore his wife and daughter for the sake of his parents, so he is not a good son. A good father is not a good husband. After a few years, our relationship has faded away and there is no longer any love, so we are getting divorced. You should have thought of this when you did those things. One day. This is a new society, not an old society. Zhu's mother looked a little embarrassed, her affection gradually turned into anger, and said, you must have someone outside, so you are in a hurry to get a divorce. My stupid son was actually kept in the dark. Yuan Hua, who originally wanted to have a good talk with Zhu's mother, trembled with anger when he heard this. Then he looked at Zhu's mother coldly and said, you are still a university teacher. With such quality, it is really unreasonable. There is no basis for it. If you talk nonsense, you just know how to throw dirty water on others. I will make it clear today that the biggest reason why Zhu's Hitao and I divorced is because of things like yours. If it weren't for you, we would be fine. With an old godly wife like you, what kind of daughter-in-law can Zhu's Hitao find for you in the future? After saying that, Yuan Hua turned around and left, too lazy to talk to such a person. It was really unreasonable. After getting in the car, Yuan Hua drove, leaving Zhu's mother stunned. Yuan Hua secretly made up his mind that he would never talk to Zhu's Hitao's mother again in the future. In the car, Zhu Xiaoxiao whispered, Mom, Grandma is very scary. I don't want to see her. Yuan Hua smiled and said, if you don't like her, then I'll see her. Mom doesn't like her either. Zhu Xiaoxiao smiled, Mom, are we going to Aunt Tianation's house today? Yes, Yuan Hua said, it's Grandma Wang's birthday at your sweet aunt's house. We are going to give gifts and eat cake. Yeah, Xiaoxiao likes to eat cakes the most. Zhu Xiaoxiao was very happy. She was very happy during this time. People around her liked her very much, and she didn't have to go hungry. When Yuan Hua saw her daughter's adorable appearance, her heart softened into a puddle of water. When they were almost at He Tianation's house, Zhu Xiaoxiao said softly, Mom, I like Dad. I hope Dad will play with me. Okay, Yuan Hua said, your father is usually very busy, but on weekends, he will come to see you. Zhu Xiaoxiao nodded and said, well, I'll wait for Dad on the weekend. Yuan Hua touched his daughter's head and whispered softly, from now on, you can only leave with Grandpa and Mother to pick you up, and you can't leave for anyone else. Ah, Zhu Xiaoxiao scratched his head, but Dad can't do it too. Yuan Hua nodded and said solemnly, yes, no, it can only be Grandpa and Mother. Otherwise, you will not be able to see Grandpa and Mother in the future. When Zhu Xiaoxiao heard this, he was a little frightened. He nodded and said, Mom, I'm waiting for Grandpa and Mom. If we don't go with other people, Dad can't do it either. Awesome. Yuan Hua kissed his daughter's forehead, if you are obedient, Mom will often take you to play with your brothers and sisters at Aunt Tianation's house. Yeah, I like Aunt Tianation's brothers and sisters the most, Zhu Xiaoxiao said with a bright smile. Those brothers and sisters would not bully her and would give her delicious and fun things. When he arrived at He Tianation's house, Yuan Hua gave Grandma Wang a pair of exquisite reading glasses. Chi Xiaoyan, Wang Ying, and Yuan Hua all came with their children. It was said that it was a birthday celebration for Grandma Wang, but in fact it was just a celebration for everyone to get together. A group of children were playing together and were having a lot of fun. On this day, Mr. Huo and Mrs. Huo also came. Song Chunli helped with the arrangements and was busy inside and outside. Grandma Wang felt very happy when she saw everyone working for her. "Miss, I really didn't expect this day to come," Grandma Wang said excitedly. She has been living in Huo Yingjia's house these years. Although she helps take care of the children, she is actually here to take care of her old age. Mrs. Huo smiled and said, "You deserve this. Jekan, Yingjia, Ruwa, Ruimin, these children were all brought up by you. You are their elder, and I should respect you, it should be." "It's my blessing," Grandma Wang said. "I couldn't even imagine the good life now. I recommend Kikai's own new book, Rebirth of Sweet Wife, The Strongest Agent." After a new life, Mo Xiaomi deeply feels that it is imperative to have a golden thigh. But a certain man, where are you hugging me? Xiaomi, the third leg is also a leg. A certain man, well, hold me tight for the rest of my life. This is the story of a little girl who deliberately tried to hug someone's thigh but was counterattacked. She cutely and stupidly pretended to be a pig to eat the tiger, and then made a gorgeous counterattack and reached the pinnacle of her life. Please collect and subscribe. The Sweetness of the 70s. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 1170. 1168. The two old ladies thought of the war-torn years in the past. Yes, in those turbulent days before liberation, let alone good days, being alive was a luxury. Mrs. Huo said, "We are both blessed, and you should also be good and live a long life age." "I will cherish the days I have now," Grandma Wang said, "but after all, as I get older, I am always a little unable to do what I want." "Yes, if you think about it, in the blink of an eye, we will be over 80 soon," Mrs. Huo lamented. "Although our children have become talented and our descendants are prosperous, we still can't let go. I don't want to die." "Well, I really don't want to die," Grandma Wang said. "We are in good health. We can live as long as we want. Don't worry too much. If you think about death all day long, it will also affect your mood." Mrs. Huo smiled, nodded, and said, "Yes, I don't want to think about it anymore, we just make money every day." The two old ladies were chatting and laughing in the room, and the juniors also had fun, celebrating Grandma Wang's birthday in a lively manner. He Tian tries her best to make herself and the people around her happy. In fact, they are indeed happy. And Huo Yingjia, who was far away in a remote base, was not having it so easy. Facing the messy pit not far away, Huo Yingjia was somewhat speechless. Even though he was wearing protective clothing, Huo Yingjia could still feel the heat and smoke in front of him. It has failed 3 times. There are only 3 things to do. We should be able to find out the reason. But the chief engineer was still in over his head and unwilling to modify the plan. Just after the first 2 failures, Huo Yingjia had already submitted a plan. However, during the 3rd experiment, Huo Yingjia found that it was just the same as the second time and could not change the fundamental problem at all. Moreover, the report he submitted did not work at all. It wasn't taken seriously. Maybe the people above didn't see his report at all. Huo Yingjia was lost in thought when someone suddenly pushed him and gestured to him to work quickly. The chief engineer over there came to inspect. If Huo Yingjia is found to be outstanding, he will probably curse. Every time he failed, the chief engineer had a bad temper. But seeing his gray hair and bloodshot and tired eyes, everyone couldn't bear to blame the old man. Huo Yingjia understood and lowered his head to work. This could not go on like this. He wanted to talk to the chief engineer in person. Is it the chief engineer who is stubborn, or is it the people below who blocked his report? After doing this, everyone left one after another, leaving only Mr. Lu, silent and thin, facing the big pit. Huo Yingji did not leave, but stayed. When Mr. Lu turned around and left and got into the jeep, Huo Yingji came up and said, "General Manager Lu, I am Huo Yingji, a member of the third team. I had something happen just now and the car left first. Can I give you a ride?" "Oh," Mr. Lu was stunned, "are you Huo Yingji?" Although Chief Engineer Lu did not meet Huo Yingji alone, when he convened scientific researchers across the country, he checked the information one by one and had some impressions of Huo Yingji. This is a materials researcher who comes from a meritorious family but has outstanding abilities. "Yes, I am Huo Yingji." Huo Yingji smiled, hoping this time it would go well. "Since you're on your way, come up." Mr. Lu smiled, but his tired expression and frustration made the old man look very haggard. "Thank you." Huo Yingji came up and sat next to Mr. Lu. The driver and guard in front drove away. In the car, Huo Yingji did not talk around in circles and said, "General Manager Lu, although I am an ordinary scientific researcher, after the first two failures, I speculated based on some information that it was a problem with our automation, so I wrote a report, submitted. Have you seen it?" Chief Engineer Lu was stunned and frowned. "I didn't see the report." "Let's not talk about the report for now. Our automation was improved from the West. How could there be problems? And we have already tested it and there are no problems before we use it." After hearing this, Huo Yingji nodded and said, "If it's fine for a single individual, but it's not accurate when the temperature is higher than about 1500 degrees Celsius." Hearing this, Mr. Lu was stunned. How could he forget that this was a high-temperature environment? "Why do you say that?" Chief Engineer Lu asked. "Why do you have such an inference? You didn't do any relevant experiments." Obviously, Mr. Lu didn't believe Huo Yingji's words. Huo Yingji saw that Chief Engineer Lu did not deny it blindly, and then continued, "Actually, the research of my institute is not a secret here. The key materials for localization in this automation system were developed by our institute. We know the various parameters inside, but the requirement we received at the time was that the temperature should not be higher than 1500 degrees Celsius, and the limit of this material is 1500 degrees Celsius." Chief Engineer Lu was stunned. If it was about automation, then his previous revisions were all in the wrong direction. "Are you sure?" Engineer Lu asked, looking serious. Huo Yingji nodded, "I'm sure. In fact, there is no problem with your current design theme. The big problem is automation." "Oh," Chief Engineer Lu was stunned. "There is no problem in general. Then tell me, apart from automation, what other problems are there? Although I am serious, as long as what you say makes sense, we can complete the task earlier. I will definitely think about it seriously." He has already failed 3 times. If he fails to finish the 4th time, he will be under even greater pressure. Not only do you spend money, but you also waste valuable time. Now that the international situation is complex and foreign countries are blocking the country, their projects must be completed in order to enhance the country's strength. Since you were wrong before, let's listen to this young man. This is a domestic expert in materials, and Huo Yingji actually participated in the research of automation systems, even in the development of a small part of the materials. "Well, Chief Engineer Lu, there is a relatively detailed discussion in that report. You should look for it when you go back." Huo Yingji said, "I spent a lot of rest time to complete it. I hope it can be of some help to you." If he didn't want to go home quickly, Huo Yingji didn't want to jump to the next level and report it to others, causing him to hold grudges. Chief Engineer Lu nodded and said, "Then tell me who you gave the report to." "Our team leader Wen Kaiming." Huo Yingji said, "I watched him hand it over to your assistant Wang Shengli." "Wang Shengli? If he has good suggestions, Wang Shengli will take the initiative to tell him. Chief Engineer Lu nodded and said, "Okay, I'll ask someone to look for it when I go back, and I'll look carefully. If this is really the reason, I'll take credit from you. If it doesn't work, Mr. Lu will not criticize Huo Yingzhe. Firstly, Huo Yingzhe is young and capable, secondly, it is because of Huo Yingzhe's background. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Sweetness of the Seventies. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 1171. 1169. Even if it is not a systematic one, it cannot be difficult. Who knows if we will meet him in the future? Arriving at the base office area, Huo Yingzhe took a shower in the public bathroom and changed clothes before returning to the dormitory. Li Gong had already packed food for Huo Yingzhe and said, "I saw that you didn't come, so I packed it for you. I was afraid that you would be late and there wouldn't be any good food. It's just a bit cold now. You go to the kitchen to heat it up." "Thank you, Gong Li." Huo Yingzhe thanked him and went to the kitchen with the food. After heating the food, he took it out, poured a glass of boiling water, and started eating on the desk. "Gong Huo, why didn't you come back with us just now?" Gong Li asked curiously, holding a book in his hand and about to read it. Huo Yingzhe replied while eating, "I found some problems, and I happened to meet Mr. Lu, so I talked to him." "Is it the same issue we discussed in the dormitory last time?" Li Gong asked. The report written by Huo Yingzhe also had a share of credit from Li Gong, so he also knew some of the content. But after their report was submitted, there was no news. Li Gong thought it was wrong, so he didn't take it to heart. It's just that he failed today and Huo Yingzhe mentioned it again, so he also remembered it. "Well, yes." Huo Yingzhe nodded, "I have to mention it. They simply looked in the wrong place. If they don't change, they will still fail the fourth time. Not only will it cost money, but the task will not be completed, and we can't go back early. Home." Li Gong also sighed and said, "Yes, I miss home too. I have been away from home for 7 months. After a while, my daughter won't even recognize me. Hey, although my children don't know me, they will complain about me in their hearts. Before I came out, I said I was buying them gifts, but it turned out that I bought this gift for several months." Huo Yingzhe said with a bitter smile, "Eating quickly after eating, walk around the house to eat." Huo Yingzhe and Li Gong got together, but they never talked about work or family. "If you don't chat in this damn place, you'll probably get sick from boredom." Let's say that after General Engineer Lu returned, he immediately called Wang Shengli. Shengli, Wen Kaiming, the leader of the previous 3 groups, submitted a document that contained automation content. "Have you read it?" Chief Engineer Lu asked. He couldn't find the reason now, so he decided to take a look at Huo Yingzhe's plan. Wang Shengli was stunned, thought for a while, and said, "In the middle of last month, Wen Kaiming, the leader of the 3rd group, did submit a document, but I saw that it was about automation and rejected it directly. After all, there is no problem with automation. There is no need to waste energy on that." Even Chief Engineer Lu thought so, so when Wang Shengli said this, Chief Engineer Lu was not angry, but nodded and said, "Our 3rd experiment failed, and we must change direction. Go and get that information. Come here and show me." Seeing Chief Engineer Liu's request, Wang Shengli nodded and said, "Yes, I'll go find him right away." After Wang Shengli returned, he found the document that had been regarded as useless material in a basket containing various materials in the office, and took it over to look at it carefully. The data inside has been analyzed in various ways, and it seems to make some sense. Chief Engineer Lu was still waiting. Wang Shengli didn't dare to delay and hurriedly sent him over. Chief Engineer Lu was very tired during this period, but he couldn't complete the task and couldn't sleep. While drinking strong tea, I thought. After Wang Shengli knocked on the door and came in, he placed the information in front of Chief Engineer Lu and said, "Chief Engineer Lu, this is the information submitted by Wen Kaiming, the leader of the third group, and it was submitted by Huo Yingzhe and Li Xiang together." "Well, okay, you go down first and I'll take a look," Mr. Lu said. "You have been working very hard during this period. Go back and have a good rest. The road ahead will be difficult, and we will continue to work hard." Wang Shengli smiled bitterly and said with concern, "General Manager Lu, you are working harder than us. Everyone is in a bad mood today, so I asked them to go back. I will work outside. If you call me if you need anything, I will accompany you." He didn't dare to leave Chief Engineer Lu alone in the office. After all, Chief Engineer Lu was already 65 years old. "Hey, you still care about me?" Mr. Lu smiled and said, "Okay, I know my own body, it's fine." Wang Shengli went out and read documents outside. When he was tired, he squinted for a while. Chief Engineer Lu inside didn't pay attention at first, but as he looked at it, he felt like there was an extra window in front of him. Maybe this was a way out. The more Chief Engineer Lu looked at it, the more surprised he became. He took a pen to write and draw on the paper. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. It was until 10 o'clock that Wang Shengli finally couldn't bear it anymore and said, "General Engineer Lu, you should take a rest quickly. It's already 10 o'clock. Chief Engineer Lu then raised his head from the document, adjusted his glasses, and said with some unfinished thoughts, "Let me read it for a while. Call me at 11 o'clock and I'll be back on time." "Mr. Lu, my wife told me before that I would take good care of you, but how can I take care of you like you are now?" Wang Shengli smiled bitterly. "You can't look at it. Go back with me immediately." Chief Engineer Lu wanted to read it again, but Wang Shengli had already taken away the information and said, "I'll keep the information for you and give it to you tomorrow." Wang Shengli said as he put the information in the safe in the office. Chief Engineer Lu had no choice but to smile bitterly and said, "Even if I go back, I won't be able to sleep." "If you can't sleep, just lie down and close your eyes to rest," Wang Shengli said. "Chief Engineer Lu can't be so tired anyway." Chief Engineer Lu had no choice but to go back and rest. Early the next morning, Chief Engineer Lu came to the office and said directly to Wang Shengli, "Go and get Huo Yingzhe, Li Xiang, and the leader of the third group Wen Kaiming to the conference room. I want to discuss it with them." Wang Shengli agreed and called the leader of the third group. Huo Yingzhe and Li Xiang were getting ready to work when they saw Wen Kaiming rushing over and said, "Huo Yingzhe, Li Xiang, Chief Engineer Lu wants to see us. Please pack up quickly and come with me." Huo Yingzhe and Li Xiang looked at each other and couldn't help but smile. If they had known that going to Mr. Lu would be effective, they would have gone to Mr. Lu directly before. Wen Kaiming asked Huo Yingzhe some questions, and then the three of them went to a small conference room next to Chief Engineer Liu's office. Sometimes they would discuss issues in a conference room like this. Chief Engineer Lu brought notebooks and pens, and Wen Kaiming, Huo Yingzhe, and Li Xiang also brought notebooks to record. There is another report in Chief Engineer Liu's notebook. This report is the one Huo Yingzhe wrote before. "Hello, Mr. Lu." The three people stood up and were very respectful. General Engineer Lu across from him is a national treasure level scientific researcher who has participated in important domestic projects. As younger generations, they respect this old man very much and do not look down upon him in the slightest because of the failure of the experiment. The Sweetness of the 70s. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 1172. 1170. When Chief Engineer Lu saw the three energetic young people, he thought about the report in his hand and nodded. "Okay, not bad," Chief Engineer Lu said. "I have already seen the report that Huo Yingzhe mentioned to me yesterday, and found that there are indeed many outstanding things in it, so I asked you to come over and let's discuss it. If it is feasible, our next test will focus on this part. Wen Kaiming was excited. If it was really because of automation problems, then he could have made great contributions. Li Xiang did the same. He was just helping Huo Yingzhe find some data. In fact, he didn't have much insights. They were all Huo Yingzhe's ideas. Thank you, Chief Engineer Lu. Wen Kaiming smiled. This was proposed by Huo Yingzhe. Li Xiang and I just helped find some data and we don't dare to take credit. Seeing what the two people said, Huo Yingzhe added, without the help of the team leader and Gong Li, I wouldn't have been able to find such complete data. In short, the purpose of everything is to complete the task and create a more accurate one earlier. Long distance. If there is any inappropriateness, please forgive me, Mr. Lu. Huo Yingzhe's attitude was neither humble nor arrogant, nor impetuous. Chief Engineer Lu had an even better impression of him. Yes, that's well said, Mr. Lu said, as long as it succeeds, everyone will have credit, and I will definitely reward you based on your merit. Come on, stop chatting, let's start discussing this place. Chief Engineer Lu expressed all his doubts and some new insights. Huo Yingzhe and others diverged their thinking and discussed in more detail, and both benefited a lot. Chief Engineer Lu finally determined that the cause was automation, and then handed the report to the third group. Then Chief Engineer Lu asked other groups to continue calculating, and then based on the situation of the three groups, it took almost a month of deductions and small experiments to finally determine the modification plan. Chief Engineer Lu wrote a report, then applied for funds and materials to start the fourth experiment. Chief Engineer Lu and Huo Yingzhe were very nervous and looked at the screen. This is the fourth experiment. If it doesn't succeed, Mr. Lu won't know how to proceed. Because of the nervousness, Mr. Lu was a little nervous. Huo Yingzhe stood beside the old man, gently supported him, and said, "It only takes 3. This is the 4th time. We have considered various issues and aspects, and we will definitely succeed." Although Huo Yingzhe was a young man, General Manager Lu felt much calmer when he heard his voice. He nodded and said, "You are fine." "Thank you, Chief Engineer Lu, for the compliment," Huo Yingzhe said modestly. "As long as they complete the task, their work is done and they can go home." In a blink of an eye, it is now June and he has been in this place for more than 9 months. Not being able to communicate, make phone calls, or go back secretly was a kind of torture for Huo Yingzhe. An hour, 2 hours. The screen showed that the target had been hit, and confirmation news needed to be sent from the field. Mr. Lu personally answered the phone, and when he heard the excited voices of the people on the other side, he couldn't help but burst into tears. Everyone looked at Mr. Lu, hoping to hear news of success. But Chief Engineer Lu was silent for a long time and just shed tears. Was this a success or a failure? Huo Yingzhe stood beside General Manager Lu and asked softly, "General Manager Lu, did we succeed or fail?" Only then did Mr. Lu realize that everyone was waiting for his news. He quickly wiped away his tears and said, "Successful, hit the target accurately, 3 shots in a row. It's successful, it's finally successful." Everyone was very excited when they heard Mr. Liu's words, cheering and high-fiving each other. This scientific and technological research project has come to a successful conclusion. Okay, now everyone go back, do your best work, prepare the materials, and hold a summary meeting later, Chief Engineer Lu said, and then the relevant departments will reward each group based on their merit. Wen Kaiming and Li Xiang were very excited and were very grateful to Huo Yingzhe. When they went back, they bought delicious food and some wine, took them directly to the dormitory, and treated Huo Yingzhe to a drink. "Huo Gong, thanks to you this time, we take advantage of it and get a lot of credit," Wen Kaiming said, returning to the original unit. "This is a resounding achievement that no one can deny." Yes, Li Xiang smiled, "Thank you, Huo Gong. You're welcome, you helped too, you deserve it. Huo Yingzhi smiled. Actually, I just want to complete the task early and go home quickly. There are elders in my family and younger ones in my family, so I can't leave home alone. Haha, brother Huo is a man of temperament when Kaiming has changed his mind. He is from a work unit in Sichuan province, and Huo Yingzhi is from Yanjing, a big place, so he wants to have a good relationship with Huo Yingzhi. Huo Yingzhi smiled and said, to each other, let's work hard and do the final work well, and then we can go back. Well, yes, Wen Kaiming said, but I heard that this mission is very important, and there may be rewards for merit in Yanjing. That's great, Huo Yingzhi said with a smile. Yanjing is my hometown. When you arrive in Yanjing, you must visit my home. I will invite you to eat at the famous Tanjia village. I guarantee that you have never eaten there before. It tastes great. Okay, we're going to make trouble then, Li Xiang said, also wanting to have a good relationship with Huo Yingzhi. Although they didn't know Huo Yingzhi's family situation, judging from Huo Yingzhi's demeanor, it was not something that ordinary working-class people could cultivate, and it was in Yanjing, so they should be able to guess something and want to make friends. They were all colleagues in the first place, and the two of them had no bad intentions, so Huo Yingzhi naturally accepted everyone who came. In the world of martial arts, you cannot be a lone ranger, you must always have a few friends. Zhou Yuanchao was a good brother, but he still had some friends outside. After that, General Engineer Liu led everyone to summarize the report, check for omissions and fill in the gaps. Half a month later, another experiment was conducted, and it was a complete success. All kinds of data and parameters were very stable, indicating that the task was successfully completed and passed. Acceptance above. During this time, everyone is relaxed. But once I have some free time, I miss home and my family. So everyone began to leave in batches, and Huo Yingzhi waited eagerly. July 20th, the sun is shining brightly and the weather is hot. Huo Yingzhi was sitting in the bus, covered in sweat, but very excited. I can finally go home, this stinky thing is nothing. It was very troublesome when I came here, and even more troublesome when I went back. They were blindfolded, took a morning helicopter ride, 2 hours in a car, then got on a bus, and finally arrived at a train station in a small town. Here, they are already more than 1,000 kilometers away from the base. Others didn't know the location of the base at all, but they couldn't hide it from Huo Yingzhi. But Huo Yingzhi was too lazy to say anything. Like everyone else, he pretended not to know and got on the train with a tired look on his face. Fortunately, it was a sleeper berth. Huo Yingzhi climbed onto the train and began to fall asleep. Thank you all for the rewards. The new book Rebirth of the Sweet Wife, The Strongest Agent, please recommend and collect it.